Oh, this music's not a good sign. Much to our dismay, some unsettling news awaited us as we reached the outskirts of Aizu Castle. The Aizu domain, after a month of resistance, had finally tendered the terms of their surrender to the Imperial Army.
Aizu's finally flown the white flag, have they? I'm surprised they lasted as long as they did.
I couldn't believe that the Aizu were defeated. When the Shinsengumi was still stationed in Kyoto, the Aizu served as one of their biggest allies and supplied them with armaments and support. So where is the Shinsengumi, then? I felt my body tremble as I asked him, trying to steel myself from letting the trepidation take over. Had they, too, declared their surrender to the Imperial Army with the Aizu? I feared the worst, thinking of all manners of brutal torture and imprisonment awaiting them. Would their fate be the same as Kondo's?
I had Amagiri investigate the situation at once. Surely he will return with news soon.
Both Kazuma and Amagiri were affiliated with the Satsuma domain. I imagined it wasn't particularly difficult for either to ascertain key information in regards to the war front. Kazuma and I waited idly on the outskirts of the castle before Amagiri returned.
I have discovered the Shinsengumi's whereabouts.
I held my breath in anticipation. Although I had been begging for a sign, anything really, of where they'd been, the circumstances of the defeat made me anxious of hearing the truth. Amagiri took a deep breath and spoke with a somber tone.
Allegedly, Okita, the captain of their 1st Division, has passed away from illness in Edo.
Oh no, Soji's dead. Is she gonna have an epitaph for this boy? No, not yet.
As for Sayato, he was last seen leading a battalion of Shinsengumi men in Bonori Pass, and has been missing in action. We can only assume the worst.
Aw, Kyuju's boy, no. They should have had tea. My stomach sank like a stone into the ocean. Suddenly, my breaths were shallow and staggered. Okita and Saito were gone. Two of the most talented, heroic warriors in the Shinsengumi were now nothing but a faint memory, fading against the tide of an unstoppable army.
Nagakura, who was reported to have left the Shinsengumi months ago, is also missing in action.
I was speechless. I could only bite into my lips and look at the ground. Amagiri's very well informed. Was Nagakura safe? Were any of them safe?
Sanon and Todo, both of whom led the Fury Corps under the Shinsengumi, were killed in combat by Imperial soldiers on the battlefield.
Do you have any good news? I knew this music was bad news. Sheesh. That's a lot of people. Heisuke and Sanon too?
The Imperial Army was likely briefed on their use of the Furies and their weaknesses by Kodo.
The deaths of Heisuke and Sanon were difficult to take in, and I was swirling in a pit of despair. They willingly gave up their humanity to become Furies, and not even that could save them. What about the others? Okay, music stops.
Well, thankfully for you, Hijikata lives and is en route to Sendai with his remaining men currently.
My eyes shot wide open.
Did I hear correctly? Even with the Aizu being done and dusted, and the death of all his men, that little dog still got some bite, eh?
Kazuma was always the first one in line to scorn the Shinsengumi's actions, but this was different. His voice almost led me to believe that he was impressed by Hijikata, which was a little strange. So everyone's still putting up a fight, huh? Life for the Shinsengumi following the battle at Toba Fushimi was nothing but one continuous adjustment to defeat. Even during the battle at Kofu, when everything looked to be in their favor, the shogunate left them out to dry. Yet they pushed forward with their heads held high.
What reasons have they scraped together to justify continuing this hopeless war? As I recall, the Takagawa clan hadn't even declared them as retainers of the shogunate. I cannot fathom any reasons for them to risk their lives so needlessly. Yet here they are.
I don't know either. There was one thing I did know. I celebrated internally, knowing that their spirits were unbroken despite their adverse circumstances.
Speaking as an outsider, all they're doing is hopping from one burial ground to the next. Can you honestly tell me this is the future they've envisioned for themselves?
Yes. The Shinsengumi's steadfast dedication on the battlefield was a monument to the courage and principles of their fallen comrades.
I heard the remnants of the shogunate army are mobilizing in Sendai to depart for Aizu.
Ezo. Oh, achievement. We got a genius over here. Is that all my encyclopedia stuff? I hope so.
It is far north of Oshu, a land located beyond the ocean's reaches.
Formerly known as the Mutsu province, it is in the country's northeastern region. Alright, I need to know. I know we're having a very important moment, but let's see. That's all done. That's all done. That's all done. That's all done. So is that. Didn't realize I was so close. Oh, I'll just empty that. Check that off. My goodness, that's a long one. See, this happened in the last game, too. There's another... I feel like I got that achievement for, like, doing all the encyclopedia entries, but there was one or two that weren't actually cleared. Yeah, I have one more. It's a T. Alright. Well, I'll look out for that T, I guess. As soon as he said it, my heart was set.
Do you plan on going to Aizu as well?
Yes. Hijikata may be unaware of the news that some of the captains have passed away. With Okita having died in Edo, and Harada dying back in Ueno, it was unclear to me if word of their passing had reached Hijikata in time. It was my duty to honor their memory by telling Hijikata myself. My eyes intently shifted to Kazuma. Kazuma. I want to travel to Ezo and meet up with whomever's left in the Shinsengumi. Before I continued, I took a brief moment to carefully calculate what I wanted to say. I inhaled, looking straight into Kazuma's eyes. Oh, interesting. We haven't smooched yet, so you better come with me and witness the end. And maybe get some smooches in while you're at it, sir. You're taking your sweet time. Kazuma, would it be too much to ask if you'd join me? There's that shocked face you like to see.
Me? Go along with you?
Yes. I have a gut feeling that Ezo is the end of the road for them. No battlefields were left untouched by the vicious torrents of the war, and Ezo stood as the decisive scene in our history's most tumultuous chapter. So, I guess that's even more of a reason why I want to travel together, Kazuma. I want you with me when I witness the end of the Shinsengumi. It was surreal, if not strangely inappropriate, of me to ask such a thing of Kazuma, but because Kazuma had been involved in so many duels with the Shinsengumi over the years, I wanted him to bear witness to what could possibly be the Shinsengumi's final intimate moments. Kazuma listened intently, and when I finished speaking, his lips curled into a smug grin. Yeah, she wants you around.
The end for them, you say? Very well. What an enticing offer.
Thank you so much. I was flushed with relief at Kazuma's acceptance of my proposal. It had felt like ages since anyone could coax a sincere smile out of me.
Well, we better get moving to Sendai. It'd be a shame if the boat to Ezo leaves before we arrive.
Goodbye for now, Amagiri. We bid farewell to Amagiri and turned around in the direction of Sendai when...
Hold on a minute, you two. There's someone here who wants to speak with you.
Huh? I spun back around to face Amagiri. It was... You too? Aw, I'm so glad we get to say goodbye to you guys. I'm so pleased that we had so much interaction with these two. I was worried after Ryoma's route. I'm like, no, I got gypped. But I feel satisfied with this.
Ah, there you are. Looks like you've made it to Aizu in one piece.
Shiranui, what are you doing here? Are you here with the Imperial Army?
No. I just raced to Aizu to bring you something.
Shiranui looked forlorn as he reached for a long, narrow spear he'd been carrying on his back. You brought Harada's staff? Where have you been keeping that? Is that... Harada's?
Unfortunately, yes. I was unable to reach the Shinsengumi in time. If he had lived then, I believe he'd still be here fighting by everyone's side. He was tenacious.
I tepidly grabbed hold of Harada's memento. It was tattered with deep scratches and scuffs, giving me a sense of how valiantly he must have fought against the savage wave of furies.
Shiranui, you are an ally of the Choshu, are you not?
No, idiot. I don't answer to the Choshu, only Takasugi. Besides, human history is written by only the victors, and everyone else is cast to the dust. So far be it from me to let their history speak for me.
Dang. Hit me with that Ryoma reference too.
Smells like bullshit to me.
Shiranui grimaced at Kazuma playfully, then turned to face me.
You still plan on following where the Shinsengumi's headed, right?
Yes. Or at least I hope so.
Well, then can you tell them something for me? Tell them that Harada, the captain of the 10th Division, was one of the bravest, most ferocious warriors I've ever met.
Shiranui. Shiranui was nowhere near as bad as Kazuma. But praising humans wasn't exactly one of his habits, especially to the degree he described Harada. Man, I was not expecting to get all the Harada feels. Sheesh. Man. Imagining what he witnessed with Harada moved me, almost as much as it must have moved him, and a bittersweet warmth swelled in my chest. Understood. I promise I'll pass along the word.
Oh, don't bother. Isn't this just another worm you've let crawl into your insipid heart?
Well, look who's talking. Who was it exactly that you came all the way to Aizu for?
Oh, snap.
I bet you that you're just as curious in seeing what's going to happen to the Shinsengumi.
Hardly. I am merely a passenger of circumstance, which has taken me on the same path as them. Enough wasting time, Yukimura. It is time for us to leave for Sendai.
Okay. Well then, Amagiri and Shiranui, please take care of yourselves. Drop by for the wedding, will you? Did I think it's still on? As we bid the two of them another farewell, Kazuma and I saw ourselves out of Aizu. After a day of travel, he and I reached the town of Sendai, but it was conspicuously quiet. I wonder if the Shinsengumi's already left for Ezo.
It appears as though the boat has already left the harbor. I believe we just missed them. They couldn't have gotten far, so we may be able to see their boat. Do you want to try?
Of course. Let's go. Ron! Kazuma and I ascended a nearby beach bluff where we hoped to get a clearer view. A cascade of maroon sparkled across the vast sea in reflection of the wide sunset, and in the distance we watched the shadow of the boat in the horizon. If I wasn't mistaken, they looked to be sailing upon a black ship. Do you think that's where the Shinsengumi is? In that ship over there?
One would assume.
I had traveled the entire country searching for them. Now, once again, I had just barely missed them and I was left in the dust. A sharp pang shot up my nose, and suddenly I felt myself fighting back a wave of tears. I dug my teeth into my lower lip, hoping not to let this deluge of self-pity come to the surface.
If you want to cry so badly, why don't you?
No. I shook my head quietly. Only because I can only imagine how much pain they're in right now. I have no right to shed tears when it's not me who's fighting out there. Kazuma sighed out of frustration and shut his eyes. He paused briefly, shifting his eyes back and forth.
You know, just because you're no good with a sword doesn't mean you're not fighting. Although your methods are quite different than the Shinsengumi's, you've had your own demons to fight.
Ha ha ha. A pun from you? And comforting words? Who would have thought?
Even I notice it.
It felt so warm to hear Kazuma's gentle words of encouragement towards how much I'd been through. After seeing Father's death, my lukewarm reunion with Kaoru, and revisiting the village of my birth. Then when we arrived in Aizu, I had been confronted with the crushing blow of hearing what became of all my old friends in the Shinsengumi. A tempest of grief gathered its winds in my heart, swirling with fervor as I tried not to collapse. Yeah, I was gonna say, the fact that you're still walking around after all the bad news you've gone through and gotten is incredible. I can't cry. If I do, then my vision will blur the view of the ship upon which everyone had been traveling. I feel that.
I'll turn around if you like. Cry as much as you wish.
Kazuma pointed his nose towards the ocean, which glowed with hues of orange and the gold under the glimmer of the late afternoon. In this moment, the levee holding back my tears broke and everything snapped. Aww. This guy, man, he's so good. What a picture. He's like, look, I'll give you some privacy, but I'm here for you. Wow. I instinctively grabbed a hold of the shirt on Kazuma's back. I buried my face into his back, wailing as quietly as I could. After believing that I could catch up to them, yet again they slipped from the tips of my fingers. The ship was beginning to vanish beyond the horizon, sailing into the ocean's furthest tendrils. Soon they disappeared from sight. I listened to the roar of the sea crashing behind me, and Kazuma spoke up.
I promise you, I will take you to them. Just be patient, okay?
Kazuma, who previously seemed hell-bent on abducting me at any cost from the Shinsengumi. Now the shoe was on the other foot, and he had promised to keep me safe on this last journey. Although I had no idea when it had actually happened, I was determined to see this to its conclusion. I must head to Ezo, the land at the end of the world. Man, that progress, though. It's incredible. I imagine we're probably going to have one last important interaction with Toshi on this. Because he's been the most prominent one to go toe-to-toe with Kazuma. It'll be interesting. Alright, so this should be the last chapter, unless we have a Toshi situation on our hands. I think Toshi was the only one with 5 chapters, though. Alright, we in full bloom. No got no smooches yet, but... he's a really nice guy, underneath all the prickly. Our initial attempts to leave the harbor for Ezo, hot in our pursuit for the Shinsengumi, were fruitless. Negotiating with ship captains to allow 2 random strangers, who, for all intents and purposes, were no more than fugitives, was a difficult sell. Kazuma sensed that our search would require more time than we originally anticipated, and so he rented a nearby mansion in Sendai for the time being. Like, no big deal. Funnily enough, I was becoming accustomed to my cozy life in Sendai. Uh-oh. May 1869. Word reached us of the Imperial Army's successful invasion in Hakodate, leaving no stone unturned as the occupying forces swept through the port city. I guess this is why it took him so long to follow her in Souma's route, is like he couldn't get a boat. He can rent a mansion just fine, but there's no way you're gonna bribe a ship captain to take you on their boat. This is cozy. I became too distracted to continue sewing, heaving a small sigh to myself in the comfort of the mansion. Almost a month had passed since we heard about the report of the massive invasion in Hakodate. But even as the threat of conflict loomed in a nearby city, leads for a means to reach Ezo were elusive. Our circumstances became particularly dire when, in April, former shogunate soldiers attacked ships from the Imperial fleet at Miyako Bay. Thanks to increased security enforcement around each port and harbor around the country, locating a suitable ship for a civilian like me was impossible. It had been almost an entire year since my separation from the Shinsengumi, which only worsened my anxiety about realistically being able to find them. Would we ever reunite, assuming they were still alive? It wasn't that Kazuma's promise of safely reaching Ezo was wearing thin with me, but each day without progress was making me impatient. I wonder if Kazuma will return soon. Kazuma and Amagiri ventured tirelessly around every market and tavern, eavesdropping on conversations to gather intelligence and leads for transport to Ezo. For myself, I was tasked with keeping the homestead tidy, taking time each day to prepare meals and perform seamstress duties. Man, he's got you working like a wife, my goodness, and you don't even realize it. My ear perked up in reaction to the sound of the door sliding open, and I straightened my back reflexively.
Home.
Hello, welcome back. I sincerely appreciate all that you've done for us today. Speaking of which, were you able to hear any leads about ships departing? His silence was deafening. No such luck today. I can't believe they got to the point of her keeping house and him being like, almost, honey, I'm home. Welcome back, dear. Kazuma had seemed especially aggrieved, however, given his slumped body language. Kazuma? Did something happen out there? I've got a feeling that you're keeping something from me. Kazuma? Kazuma's mannerisms and his foulest of moods were uncannily cat-like, dismissive to a spiteful degree. I never thought about it, but she's absolutely correct. I knew that sitting idly by, however, would only give him an opportunity to let his attitude fester. Oh no. What's happening? She's got new clothes again! She looks so cute! She looks like a girl! How exciting! I can't believe! Before the epilogue we get Chizuru in new clothes? Regardless, thank you for searching for our sake. I'm going to begin preparations for dinner, so by all means, please make yourself comfortable. Or would you rather I draw a bath for you first? Oh my god, what happened in the month that I, blanked out? You guys are so domestic. What happened? I guess she's learned to handle him over a month.
Neither. My throat is rather dry, so I desire a cup of sake before dinner. Fetch me a bottle at once.
I'm only going to grab you one, okay? Drinking too much isn't good for your health.
I bring death to those who threaten to waste my precious time, and you worry about my health. Besides, sake is more of a medicine than a poison, and as you've noticed, I'm ill. Make it 3 bottles.
Hey, don't take your frustrations out on me. Also, it's only a medicine when you drink in moderation, not when you're pissed drunk. Haven't you heard the phrase, the last drop makes the cup run over? Kazuma glared at me repugnantly, no doubt incensed by my brevity in challenging him, but... After having spent nearly every moment of close to a year with him, I was beginning to peel back the layers of this parfait onion, making his behaviors a bit easier to decode. Our intense stare went on for a few more moments, pressure bubbling to the surface like sulfur. I've not heard that noise before, and that was amazing. I'm like, is something burning on the stove? What the heck? As tension reached a breaking point, the two of us broke the silence at the exact same time.
Fine. 2 will do.
Oh, very well. I will prepare 2 for you. Oh. I found myself more comfortable with Kazuma's petulant veneer, giving me the confidence to assert myself more and more often. Yeah, you're figuring him out. That is so funny. This is, like, especially funny to me because my husband also gets into these moods sometimes. I call it his pudgy face. Like, his nose gets all... I don't know. He's not amused by things, and I'm like, poke, 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 poke. Until eventually, I peel back the layers. This is so funny.
How playfully cavalier of you. So far, neither a vessel nor the location of one has been ascertained. Doesn't this bother you?
Well, I can't help but grow anxious, yes, but I realized while speaking to Kazuma that I am... Yeah. I mean... He's putting in work. He's working hard every day trying to do... It's not like he's, you know, being moody around the mansion. He's trying to help. It's just not panning out. To tell you the truth, I'm so grateful of all that you and Amagiri have done for me recently. I wasn't speaking only of their diligence in Sendai. I could have fallen prey to a bevy of dangers while outside of the Shinsengumi's custody, but Kazuma had repeatedly saved my life in our time together. If I had to deal with all of this alone, then there's no telling where I'd be at this point. At first, I was rather intimidated by you. But now, I have to admit that I owe much to you. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I admitted to him my sincere debt of gratitude and bowed deeply, feeling the tatami creak underneath me.
Huh. That's more like it. Humility is a more attractive color on you. From now on, feel free to humble yourself by complimenting me however much you deem fit.
Oh, please. I just did. Don't make me regret it already. I threw a petty fit by pouting my lips, but Kazuma chuckled to himself. Suddenly, Kazuma's expression dropped, and he appeared stern without missing a beat. Kazuma?
Earlier you had a question. I have a response.
Oh, yes! My heart seemed keen on bursting from out of my chest, wondering if he had in fact located a ship. After clearing my throat, I cupped my hands together, interlocking my fingers as I awaited his answer politely. Nothing could prepare me for what he said.
Actually, this would be a better discussion for after we've eaten. Prepare yourself in the meantime.